Picture this. A close friend comes to you with a secret, one that could hurt someone else. Or worse, they've done something wrong and ask for your silence. What do? Loyalty. It's a beautiful word. It speaks of trust, history, shared memories. But is loyalty always good? Should it have limits? When does loyalty turn into complicity? Welcome to today's episode. The ethics of loyalty. How far should you go for a friend? We'll journey through the thoughts of Aristotle, Confucius, Kant, and more to ask some hard questions. Because loyalty isn't just about standing by someone. It's about understanding what and who you're standing for. If you're new here and enjoy diving into timeless questions that shape our lives, subscribe to the channel, leave a like if this resonates, and share your take in the comments below. Let's think deeply, together. I'll take this in segments to help it sink deeply. Segment 1. What is loyalty, really? Let's start at the root. Loyalty is more than just allegiance. It's deeper than a handshake, deeper than a flag, deeper than a promise muttered under breath or etched into stone. Loyalty is a moral commitment. It's the invisible thread, the binding force that holds together relationships, families, communities, even entire nations. It's what steadies us in times of chaos and keeps us tethered to something beyond ourselves. And yet, for something so central to human life, it's not always easy to define. The Roman philosopher Cicero once said, "Nothing is more noble, nothing more venerable than loyalty." And in many ways, he was right. Loyalty can be a beautiful thing. It can show up as steadfast devotion to a friend in their darkest hour. It can look like unshakable belief in a cause, or an enduring love for one's homeland. It can be the quiet, daily choice to stand by someone or something, even when it's inconvenient or unpopular. But, and here's where things get more complex, loyalty can take many forms. Not all of them are noble. Not all of them deserve our commitment. Loyalty to a corrupt leader, to a toxic ideology, to a harmful tradition. These too are forms of loyalty. Just because someone is loyal doesn't mean they are right. And just because loyalty is powerful doesn't mean it's always good. So maybe the real question isn't, are you loyal? Because almost all of us are, in one way or another. The real question, the one worth pausing for, is this. What is your loyalty serving? Is it lifting others up or holding them down? Is it rooted in truth or in fear? Is it helping you grow or keeping you stuck? Is it aligned with justice, with compassion, with integrity? Because loyalty, on its own, is neither virtue nor vice. It's the direction it takes that makes all the difference. Segment 2. Loyalty as virtue. Aristotle's view. Aristotle believed that true friendship required loyalty, but not blind loyalty. His view was nuanced, deeply ethical, and focused not just on affection, but on the moral growth that genuine friendship can inspire. In his Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle explores the nature of human relationships and outlines 3 distinct types of friendship. The first is the friendship of utility. These are the kinds of relationships we form because they're useful to us in some way. Perhaps it's a business partner or a colleague, someone we get along with because there's a mutual benefit. But when that benefit disappears, often so does the bond. The second kind is the friendship of pleasure. These are friendships built on enjoyment. Maybe you share hobbies, humor, or simply like spending time together. They can be delightful and uplifting, but they're also fragile. They tend to fade when the shared pleasure fades. The third, and in Aristotle's eyes the highest form, is the friendship of virtue. This kind of relationship is rooted in mutual respect and a shared commitment to goodness. It is not about what you can get from one another, but about who you help each other become. These friendships, he believed, are rare, but they are the ones that truly deserve deep loyalty. Why? Because they elevate both people. They are grounded not just in affection or convenience, but in a profound mutual desire to live well and cultivate virtue. Aristotle might ask us to reflect. Is your loyalty helping your friend grow in virtue or enabling their vice? That's not an easy question to answer. In fact, it can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it's an essential one. Because real friendship isn't just about standing by someone no matter what. It's about standing by someone in a way that helps them become who they ought to be and invites them to help you do the same. So when we talk about loyalty, Aristotle reminds us, it should never be blind. Loyalty, in its truest form, is a commitment to each other's growth, not just to each other's comfort. Segment 3. Confucius and loyalty to harmony. As he once said, when you see a worthy person, endeavor to emulate him. When you see an unworthy person, examine yourself. These words are more than advice. They're a call to self-awareness and ethical reflection. Confucius believed that every encounter, whether inspiring or troubling, offers an opportunity to grow, to recalibrate our character, and to align our loyalty with virtue. To be loyal, in the Confucian sense, is not to blindly support a friend, a leader, or even a tradition. It is to ensure that our loyalties never fracture the integrity of the greater whole. If your allegiance to someone leads to pain, to injustice, or to imbalance, then it is not true loyalty. It is a distortion of it. There is courage in this view, because loyalty, real loyalty, doesn't always sound like agreement. It doesn't always look like approval. Sometimes it means standing firm in gentle dissent. It means saying no, not out of defiance, but from a place of compassion and moral clarity. So when you think of loyalty, don't imagine quiet obedience or unthinking support. Picture instead the kind of loyalty that speaks with integrity, that acts with conscience, and that always considers the ripple effect on friendships, on communities, and on the fabric of society itself. That, Confucius would say, is the loyalty worth living by. Segment 4. When loyalty goes wrong. The slippery slope. Loyalty, when unexamined, can become dangerous. It's a quality we often celebrate, standing by someone, sticking with a cause, defending a friend. But without thought, without reflection, loyalty can turn from virtue to vice. History shows us how this unfolds. Soldiers, unwavering in their allegiance, have followed corrupt leaders into unjust wars. Citizens, proud of their nation, have clung to broken systems that oppress rather than uplift. Even friends, out of a sense of devotion, have chosen to conceal each other's misdeeds rather than confront the truth. There's a chilling reminder in the words of philosopher Hannah Arendt, who once said, "The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil." And that's what blind loyalty can do. It can dull our moral compass, blur the lines, make us passive participants in harm. Because loyalty, without ethical reflection, becomes a shield for wrongdoing. It asks for our allegiance, but not our judgment. It demands we stand firm, even when the ground beneath us is crumbling. Real loyalty, true, courageous loyalty, demands more. It doesn't just ask, "Whom am I loyal to?" It insists we also ask, "At what cost?" It calls us to be loyal not just to people or institutions, but to principles, to justice, to truth. So let us be loyal, yes, but let us be loyal with our eyes open. Let us question, let us think, and above all, let us choose the kind of loyalty that makes us better, not blind. Segment 5. Kent and the duty to truth. Loyalty, when unexamined, can become dangerous. Throughout history, we see the tragic consequences of this truth, played out again and again. Soldiers have followed corrupt leaders into unjust wars, believing their obedience was a virtue. Citizens have remained faithful to broken systems, even as those systems oppressed their neighbors or themselves. Friends, in the name of loyalty, have turned a blind eye to each other's misdeeds, covering up harm instead of confronting it. The philosopher Hannah Arendt once warned, "The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil." It's a chilling reminder that thoughtless loyalty that doesn't pause to ask what it's serving, can become a quiet accomplice to harm. When we treat loyalty as an absolute, we risk using it as a shield against accountability. We begin to mistake silence for support, complicity for care, and blind faith for virtue. But true loyalty, real, meaningful loyalty, isn't about following someone or something, no matter what. It's about being willing to question, to challenge, even to walk away when the path leads toward injustice. So we must ask, not just, whom am I loyal to, but also, at what cost? Because loyalty, at its best, is not about obedience. It's about integrity. Segment 6. The loyalty test. Hard choices. Let's make this real, not just philosophical, not abstract, real. You're sitting across from your friend, someone you've known for years. You've laughed with them, maybe cried with them. You've gone through hard times together, and now they ask you for something that puts you in a bind. Would you lie for them? Would you back up a story you know isn't true? They say, "I need this. Just this once. Please." And you hesitate, not because you don't love them, not because you don't want to help, but because something inside you tightens. Your gut whispers, "This isn't right." Let's go deeper. Would you defend your friend publicly if they did something questionable, something that doesn't sit well with you? Not in private, and definitely not in public. Would you stand by them at the dinner table, in the group chat, at work, when others start to raise their eyebrows, point fingers? What if, quietly, deep down, you're not sure they deserve it this time? And what if, here's the hardest part, what if your friend told you something dark, a secret, one that involves another person, one that caused someone else pain? Would you hold that secret? Would you carry it for them, even if it meant letting someone else carry the hurt alone? These aren't hypothetical dilemmas. These aren't questions reserved for movies or ethics classrooms. These are the real gritty moments that surface in our lives at work, at family gatherings, in close friendships. These are the moments when our values come face to face with each other and ask, what matters more? Because here's the truth. Loyalty, it's not tested when everything is easy. Loyalty isn't proven in celebration, in shared joy, in inside jokes. No, loyalty shows itself when things get complicated, when the clean lines of right and wrong start to blur, when you have to choose between standing by someone and standing by the truth. And it hurts. It really hurts, because we think of loyalty as a virtue, as something noble. And often, it is. Loyalty can bind people together in beautiful, meaningful ways. It can make us feel safe, seen, protected. But here's where it gets tricky. Loyalty is only truly virtuous when it's rooted in something deeper than fear or obligation. Let me say that again. Loyalty is only virtuous when it's rooted in truth. That's what poet David Whyte was getting at when he wrote, "The price of our loyalty to others is our allegiance to the truth." What a line. Let it sit for a second. The price of our loyalty to others is our allegiance to the truth. Because sometimes the truest form of loyalty doesn't look like blind support. It doesn't look like saying yes or I've got your back, no matter what. Sometimes it looks like saying, I care about you enough to be honest with you. I respect you enough not to enable your harm. I love you enough to hold you accountable. That kind of loyalty, that's not soft. That's not easy. That's not passive. That's brave. And that's where the paradox lives. Because sometimes the most loyal thing you can do is speak the truth, even when it hurts, even when it risks the relationship, even when you fear being misunderstood or cast aside. You might be thinking, but isn't that betrayal? Not necessarily. There's a world of difference between betrayal and integrity. One abandons someone for personal gain or fear. The other stands firm, even if it means standing alone. Choosing truth over comfort is an act of courage. Choosing truth for the sake of someone you love, even if they don't see it that way right now, is an act of love. Let's not pretend this is black and white. It's not. These are the kinds of choices that keep us up at night. The ones that can shake a friendship, change a family, redefine how we see ourselves. But in the end, we have to ask, what kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be someone who protects others at all costs, even if it means lying, enabling, or staying silent when harm is done? Or do I want to be someone who tells the truth, kindly, courageously, even when it's hard? You get to decide. Every day, in small moments and in big ones, you get to choose. Will my loyalty be grounded in fear or in truth? And here's what I've learned. Sometimes choosing truth is the ultimate act of loyalty. Not loyalty to comfort, not loyalty to appearances, but loyalty to what is real, what is right, what is healing. And sometimes that kind of loyalty doesn't just protect a person, it saves them. And maybe it saves you too. Segment 7. Loyalty to self versus loyalty to others. Let's consider a twist on a familiar virtue. Loyalty. We often speak of loyalty as a noble thing, a badge of honor worn in friendship, family, and love. We're taught to stand by our people, to remain steadfast, to never turn away. But here's the twist. What happens when your loyalty to someone else starts to betray your own values? It's a difficult question, and not always easy to recognize when it's happening. At first, it may feel like sacrifice. You tell yourself you're being supportive, that this is what commitment looks like. But over time, if you're honest, you may start to feel a subtle erosion of your sense of self. You may find yourself justifying things you wouldn't have once accepted, saying yes when every part of you is quietly screaming no. This is where the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche offered a provocative challenge. He didn't trust blind allegiance of any kind, whether to people, institutions, or ideologies. He warned of the danger in losing yourself in service of something or someone else. Instead, Nietzsche urged us to turn inward and become radically honest about who we truly are. Become who you are, he wrote. A simple phrase, but one that demands enormous courage. Because becoming who you are isn't about indulgence or selfishness. It's about staying rooted in your own moral compass, even when that path feels lonely. It's about being loyal, first and foremost, to your inner truth. When you abandon that, when you set aside your deeper knowing for the sake of keeping the peace, for fear of disappointing someone, or in the name of devotion, you begin to lose something essential. You risk becoming a stranger to yourself. And no relationship, no matter how precious, should cost you that. This doesn't mean we shouldn't be loyal to others. Quite the opposite. Real loyalty is one of the most beautiful aspects of being human, but it should never come at the expense of your own integrity. There's a profound difference between standing beside someone and standing behind them without question. The latter can lead you into silence, compromise, and even complicity. And here's the truth that often gets overlooked. The strongest loyalty the kind that endures, the kind that uplifts, is not forged through unquestioning allegiance. It's built between people who encourage one another to stay true to themselves. It's a bond that says, I will walk with you, not so you can become more like me, but so you can become more fully yourself. Imagine that. Loyalty, not as control, not as expectation, but as mutual respect. A deep and enduring commitment, not just to each other, but to truth. The kind of truth that might be hard to speak, the kind that might ask you to say, I can't go with you on this, or that doesn't feel right to me. And still, to be met not with where your loyalties lie, pause and ask, am I still being loyal to myself? Because that's where it begins. That's where character takes root. And that's the loyalty that, in the end, makes all other loyalties real. Segment 8. Loyalty in the age of social media. Let's talk about the present, modern day. Right now, loyalty is a word that gets thrown around a lot. It sounds noble, almost sacred. But watch closely, and you'll see how often it's used as a weapon. Online especially, we see it. People getting attacked simply for disagreeing with their side. Not even insulting, not even loud, just disagreeing. And suddenly, they're enemies, traitors, targets. This isn't just about cancel culture. It's about what cancel culture has morphed into. Not accountability, but tribalism. It's the kind of loyalty that says, if you're with us, you'll agree. Always. If you question, even respectfully, then you're disloyal. You're suspect. That's not loyalty. That's coercion with a better PR team. Loyalty, real loyalty, should never mean surrendering your capacity to think independently. It should never mean silencing your questions just to maintain peace or earn approval. It should never mean betraying your own sense of right and wrong to stay in someone's good graces. Let's go back, way back, to Socrates. Socrates was loyal to Athens. He fought for her, taught in her streets, believed in her people. But he was even more loyal to something deeper: truth, reason, and his own conscience. When Athens, the city he loved, demanded he abandon those values or face the consequences, Socrates didn't flinch. He chose death with dignity over betrayal of his beliefs. Let that sink in. He didn't die for a nation's flag or a political platform. He died for the right to keep thinking, questioning, and speaking honestly, even if it cost him everything. That is radical loyalty. It's not loyalty to comfort, not loyalty to party, tribe, or group identity. It's loyalty to conscience, to the inner voice that nudges you when something feels off, to the part of you that knows truth doesn't bend to popularity or pressure. In today's world, that kind of loyalty is rare and urgently needed, because we live in a time where it's easier than ever to be swept into echo chambers, to curate your feed so precisely that all you ever hear are voices that already agree with you. And when you do that long enough, disagreement starts to feel dangerous. Dissent starts to look like betrayal. Loyalty becomes confused with conformity. But here's the thing: a society without dissent, without space for honest disagreement, isn't stable. It's brittle. It's performative. And it breaks the moment reality doesn't match the group's script. So maybe the challenge is this: don't let your loyalty be so fragile it can't survive a question. Don't make enemies out of people just because they make you think. And don't confuse obedience with integrity. Real loyalty isn't about never disagreeing. It's about loving something enough to want it to grow, to get better, to face hard truths instead of hiding from them. It's about staying rooted in what's right, even when it's not what's easy, or popular, or safe. And when it comes down to it, If we can be loyal to our conscience first, maybe then we'll be strong enough to build something worth being loyal to at all. Segment 9. What healthy loyalty looks like. So what is ethical loyalty? It's a question that doesn't often get asked out loud. We hear a lot about loyalty in our lives. Loyalty to family, to friends, to causes, to companies. But rarely do we pause to ask whether that loyalty is ethical, whether it's healthy, whether it helps us grow, or just keeps us quiet. Ethical loyalty, at its core, is a kind of fidelity that holds people accountable, but does so with love. It's not about blind allegiance or staying silent when things go wrong. Instead, it's a form of connection that says, I care about you too much to let you stay stuck. I believe in you too much to ignore the truth. It's the kind of loyalty that calls someone forward, not just back. Rather than encouraging avoidance or pretending things are okay when they're not, ethical loyalty supports growth. It makes room for change. It understands that real love, real commitment, asks us to evolve. And sometimes that evolution requires discomfort, honesty, even conflict, but never cruelty, never abandonment of values. And that's the heart of it. Ethical loyalty stays rooted in your deeper values. It doesn't ask you to betray your integrity for the sake of keeping the peace. It doesn't twist your conscience into knots to preserve appearances. Instead, it connects you to the quiet truths that live beneath the noise. Things like justice, compassion, responsibility, and respect. Truth, especially the hard kind, is sacred ground for ethical loyalty. It doesn't shy away from reality, no matter how complicated. Instead, it invites you to stand in it together, to face it with courage. This kind of loyalty doesn't require silence. It requires strength. It says, you can speak up, you can be honest, and still be loyal. As the philosopher Simone Weil once wrote, to be rooted is perhaps the most important and least recognized need of the human soul. Ethical loyalty is that rooting. It's not a chaining, a trapping, or a binding out of guilt. It's not the kind of loyalty that says, you owe me. No, it's the kind that says, we're in this because it's real. It holds firm, not out of fear, but out of love. So if you find yourself wondering whether your loyalty to a person, to a group, to a story is ethical, ask yourself, does it help me grow? Does it make space for truth? Does it honor my values? Does it call for silence or courage? Because healthy loyalty doesn't shrink you. It grounds you. It connects you to the best in yourself and in others. And that's the kind of loyalty worth holding on to. Segment 10. Final thoughts. A loyalty worth having. So, how far should you go for a friend? That's the kind of question that lingers in the quiet moments. It's easy to answer quickly with something noble. As far as they need, as far as it takes. But pause. Let it breathe. Ask yourself again and really listen to the answer forming inside. Because the real answer, you should go as far as your integrity lets you, not farther. You go as far as truth can stretch. Honest truth, not the kind that bends to convenience or silence. And you keep walking forward only as long as you can still recognize yourself when you look in the mirror. That's the limit. That's the guidepost. If you lose yourself trying to save someone else, neither of you ends up whole. Now, loyalty, it's sacred. It's deep, but it's also misunderstood. We live in a world that romanticizes blind allegiance, that says loyalty means riding or dying, sticking it out no matter the damage done or the direction taken. But the truth is, not all loyalties are created equal. The kind of loyalty that's truly worth having, the kind that changes lives for the better, isn't passive. It doesn't just nod along or stay silent when the road turns dangerous. No, it speaks up. It holds the line. It challenges. That kind of loyalty says, I see you, I care about you, and I want more for you than just comfort or escape. Because the greatest loyalty, the one that matters, holds both people to a higher standard. It doesn't just say, I'm with you no matter what. That might sound noble, but it's hollow if it means following someone into harm or away from who they truly are. Instead, the better loyalty says, I'm with you, not just for the easy chapters, not just to watch you burn things down. I'm with you to grow, to learn, to rebuild. I'm with you to become who we're meant to be. That kind of loyalty, it costs more, but it's worth everything. So, how far should you go for a friend? Far enough to hold their hand when they're falling. Far enough to say the hard thing when it needs to be said. Far enough to walk with them through the dark, but never so far that you lose your light trying to carry theirs. That's where true friendship lives. That's where love becomes strength.